talking about a movie that kind of got released just last week.
Yeah, so breaking down Ava DuVernay, someone who I've really enjoyed a lot of her recent films, and being able to cover something that's kind of wildly different with a trailer that doesn't really tell you anything about the movie.
So we're going to talk about the movie. The trailer is perfect. It doesn't talk about it. It spans the whole scope based on a book called Caste, and we're going to talk about Origin.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast. Thanks for finding us. Thanks for watching. And for our loyal fans, thank you. Really thank you for continuing to support the show. You can join the Patreon. We got some great content and great deals and great opportunities to tell us what movies we can review in future episodes. With, of course, a shout out to you. Both Kyle and I are members of the Minnesota Film Critics Alliance. Check out that webpage for critics reviews as well as ours. And of course, please hit the like and subscribe button. It's a little thing you can do, but it's a big thing for us to help out the show. And today we're talking about one that's a potent movie, Origin.
After facing immense loss, writer Isabel Wilkerson goes on a journey of discovery in an effort to find potential connections between the systemic racism of America with the Nazis' treatment of Jewish population in World War II and the caste systems of India.
Thesis movies in general are hard to win a lot of acceptance because the whole point of it is almost like you're presenting a paper piece, a published paper. And that's kind of a hard presentation because you got to cite your sources as well as bring about the kind of the experience that you're gathering your evidence and present at the end.
That's why most of the time they do documentary versions of these book adaptations than actually going for a full-fledged narrative feature.
Yeah. Before we begin, getting a little deeper, let's talk about the actress that starred in this movie. She did a fantastic job.
So it's someone I've been in love with since 2003 when I saw her in Undercover Brother. It's Ingenue Ellis-Taylor, who also appeared in King Richard a couple years ago as the wife of King Richard, as well as being in The Help. I had forgotten she was in The Help because I haven't watched that movie in so long.
Okay. And playing her husband is John Berthel.
Yeah, Shane himself, for you Walking Dead fans. Yeah, he was in the first couple seasons. The man who's really good at not making it very far into movies. John Bernthal is becoming the new Sean Bean across all features.
The American Sean Bean, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Right, so this movie is kind of like a presentation of a thesis trying to link consequences of small, minute scenarios and trying to see that the overall comes from one single source, which is kind of hard to do, especially in a movie.
It's really hard to squeeze that into a 2-hour film, let alone one that pushes 220 like this one does.
Yeah.
I remember when Caste came out in August of 2020. It was, for us Minneapolis people, it was two months after George Floyd died. Racism in America was still very much like
summer,
part of what was going on.
Yeah.
I remember this book. It captivated a lot of people. There was a lot of people who were, reading it, part of book clubs and whatnot. I didn't get a chance to check it out. It just kind of passed by, and I tend to be a fiction reader, so it didn't really get to me. But I guess the interesting thing about this film is that the trailers and the placement of the film, the posters, kind of don't tell you anything about the movie. I actually went into this thinking it might be a fantasy. Because I just try to see everything blind.
Right. There is this allegorical scene with leaves that kind of takes you into this surrealism. And then it kind of pulls away from that. And I was hoping that we kind of have that a little bit more. But like I said, it's hard to do when you're not doing a documentary and something that is really based on this book, how you can piece it all together. And it comes with kind of a pre-production kind of a plan of how when's the time to talk about this, when's the time to talk about that. Understand their dinner sequences is just a exposition dump. Now, content-wise, powerful.
Yeah, very interesting discussions are being had throughout the entire film. That's what's so odd about this movie and why it's so hard to break it down, because there's sections of the movie. There's the actual, I would call the learning portion, where she's basically narrating to the camera what's going on. There's these various...
And that's appealing to me.
Yeah, but there's these various flashbacks to things like Nazi Germany, to things like America in the 40s, and then, of course, that story at the swimming pool. And then there's also, Isabel's actual life. So there's just so much happening in the film. And that might be one of the reasons why I don't think that the argument itself is fully successful had it been in documentary form. That's why I'm actually looking forward to I reserved the book at my library, because I'm looking forward to reading further, because I don't know if this film makes its argument known in 2.5 hours. But for what it is putting on display, it's fascinating. piece of fiction, or
I would really, yeah. It's the researching part of her undiscovering these little crumbs, and all of a sudden, kind of like, oh my god, I think how my mom behaved is probably influenced by what I'm researching. But the dinner sequences of Mira explaining all this to her friends who are not black, and her husband who's white, and it's like, why it kind of. We're pulling away from things where I think it's time to really evaluate, and then when it's time to evaluate, it's time to pull away. And like I said, it's a hard balance to do. Not very many people can do that.
Yeah.
And it's almost like if we just eliminated what's going on in real life, would we have a stronger story? There's a lot of questions I have about the making of it. I love what's in it.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense to anybody?
Well, and Ava DuVernay, she directed a Netflix mini-series, When They See Us, which was like a 5-episode series about the Central Park 5, I believe. So like I think this story is probably more fit for something like a 5-episode limited series, or something that's a bit lengthier where you can kind of pause in between, because I do think that she's trying to do a lot here, and most of it does work, but I do think this is a film where the individual puzzle pieces work better than the actual collection of the puzzle. Like there's moments like the one where she meets like Nick Offerman as the plumber, and he's got the MAGA hat on, and they're like trying to find this like shaky ground with which to discuss things with each other.
Yeah, the metaphor of the basement leaky.
Yeah.
And asking her and him for help, and him knowing, right.
Yeah.
I get the whole visual metaphor, but you take that out, we still have a good content of stuff to deal with.
Yeah.
Right? I do the whole incident of Trayvon Martin, shot really well. I love it.
Yeah.
Right.
Did they, maybe I missed it early on in the film when that happened. Did they tell you that first scene that it was Trayvon Martin we were following? No. Okay, because I was wondering if I missed it when it happened and it cut away and then we didn't come back to it for like 20 minutes. I was wondering, I was like, what was that scene for? And then when I found out that it was Trayvon Martin and that it was from his perspective, it made it a very haunting scene. It reminded me of like, it reminded me a lot of the opening of Get Out, where there was that kind of like dark fear of just walking alone down a suburban street,
My danger of this is I don't think that has the sustainability to keep going, because there's just so much of a collage that you're losing some things and you're gaining others. And her whole personal life is not as appealing as her whole investigation, which is what you want to concentrate on.
Well, I think each part of it does feel to me like I think my favorite parts of it were the flashbacks, were the Nazi Germany thing, and the swimming pool. They felt like a collage of like anthological moments. Yeah. I was interested in her life.
I wasn't.
In how it directly like pushed her forward, and I like that it was broken up into like flashbacks of her life after she's lost these people. I think that made it more interesting to dive into them again. Yeah. There's a lot going on, and I think editing wise, the film was edited by Spencer Averick, who did 13th, which is a fantastic documentary about the jail system.
Oh my gosh, yeah,
that was what Ava had directed.
Was it on Netflix?
Yep.
Fantastic.
And then also did Ava DuVernay's other film, Selma, which was one of my favorite movies. When someone tells you they're going to do a Martin Luther King biopic film, I was like, well, we've seen a lot of that before, but we hadn't seen it in the way that she did, where she captured MLK as a human instead of this person that we look up to, but it captured him on his level, which I thought was really fascinating. I think that's what she does really well with Isabel here, too, is she captures people and makes them real.
Yeah. And I think, if you're doing these small vignettes and trying to do a long thread, you have to probably do like a post-it. Maybe put this one here, put this one here.
Yeah.
And I think a little more time in pre-production kind of flesh it out. I don't know if they were kind of a rush to get this movie in, but it seems like if you just sat a little more time with pre-production, there's a really good movie behind this.
Yeah.
A really fantastic movie.
I know that Netflix was originally going to release the film, and then all of a sudden they just weren't listed anymore. Okay. And I know that they had, again, worked on 13th with Ava. They had worked on When They See Us. They'd worked on other projects with her. Yeah. But maybe they just decided, this isn't something we're interested in, because all of a sudden she was out looking for funding, and it was a lot of independent groups that gave funding. So this film went from being a studio Netflix film to being an independent production, and I think that did kind of juggle some things around that made it a more difficult thing to get across the finish line. And as it stands, I am positive on the film. I'm recommending this movie, definitely. It's just, you're right. There's just, I don't envy the person who had to edit the film, because it would have been an absolute nightmare to edit together. And I think they did a okay job of putting the pieces together here.
That's a mild recommendation. It's powerful content, but at this thing, the process of the overall it's just the sustainability is not there. I don't think anybody's really going to talk about this after. Yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the film is going to be completely missed. I think we talked about a lot of films this year that we were very proud of that got missed for things like Oscars, like The Iron Claw, All of Us Strangers, completely wiped off the map, didn't get any love from the Oscars. And that is one of the things that I say is good about the Oscars, is that it does keep films in the public consciousness for longer. And that's something that's probably not going to happen with this film because it isn't in the public consciousness. But it is open now, and I definitely recommend, if you're curious about it, to check it out because it's unlike any other biopic that I think I've ever seen.
Right. I don't know. Probably works well as a documentary, but of course, we've seen so many of these documentaries before. You want to do something that gives a punch to it.
Yeah,
right.
And at the very least, it made me want to read the book. It made me interested in more of the argument because I don't think enough of the argument gets across in the film, but it made me want to further dive in.
What do you think of our reviews of Origin?
Yeah, let us know your thoughts on the film down below. Give us your favorite Ava DuVernay film. She's got a couple under her belt that people don't really talk about, and maybe one of them is yours. Go ahead and let us know in the comments section. Thank you guys for joining us so very much. And hey, we'd love to know from you as well. What's your favorite movie that didn't get a single Oscar nomination this year? I know I've got a few. Where's my dream scenario love at? Let me know in the comments section.
You hurt my feelings.
Yeah, that one did get missed too. I thought I'd get like a writing one.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
you hurt my feelings. My God,
what are you hurt by?
Right.
Let us
that
know
hurt,
down
that
there.
hurt my feelings.
I was like, did I hurt your? I forgot there's a movie called that.
You hurt my feelings.
Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next time.